Guy, you're muted. You are muted.
Hello everybody. There's no audio. Of course there's no audio. I've been talking for 10 minutes now. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Okay. Hopefully the audio's back. Sound. No sound. Can I start this again? Can we just restart this entire day because it's chaos? I don't know why there wasn't any audio. Anyway, the audio is back now. Please, 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 please forgive me. You heard my guest. You didn't hear me. So I'm going to go through all of that again. We're going to edit this out. You know, really, really, some people's children, and that's me in this particular instance. Okay, well, my name is Guy, the useless, apparently. You now have audio. Let me double check that. Have you got audio? I was so obsessed that I was going to go through this whole thing without looking at my script too much. Oh, now you can hear me. Dear, oh dear, oh dear. Please ask Till to forgive me. All right, there we go. I'm on a temporary setup in my new location here in London, so please forgive me. All right. Let's go through that all over again. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. All right. So, from the top. Some of you have asked for summaries of these videos, which will prevent you from having audio problems in the near future, and we will be doing those summaries. We will be doing a written summary of each episode, just the highlights, things that are relevant or poignant to you, and you will be able to find those on the Kickstarter updates tab. So when you go over to Kickstarter, go to updates, and you will find the summary of the show. Those will happen probably a week after the actual show itself, or sooner, depending on how fast we can type them up for you. So definitely go and have a look for them. If you maybe miss half of the show, you don't want to watch the whole show, you don't have time to watch the whole show, those updates are now going to be coming from this show moving forward. We've got questions. Obviously, your questions are important. They make this show work. We're changing it up a little bit. We're moving questions to the end of the show so that we can handle them all and we can process them all. Don't hold your questions until the end of the show. Ask away. Just remember to put the word question in front of it. I'll keep track of it. I've got my monitor set up on the side here. I'll keep track of your questions as they come through. And we will answer them as we get towards the end of the show. We've got so much to show you today. I'm now looking at those. We're blaming Brexit. There we go. I'll go with that one. So someone on Twitch definitely blaming Brexit. YouTube is giving me no information whatsoever in terms of those kinds of things. But anyway, all right. So that's where we are. Moving on. What are we talking about in today's show? Okay, so today's show we have a very interesting demo of how Project DEIOS and DGNFOG actually work together and help one another in this developmental period. We're going to be demoing a video for you that Till has made of the new brush and landscaping tool which came out of the Landmass tool. So we're going to show you some videos about that. Really, really exciting. If you're a DGNFOG user, you're going to get this as an update later on in the year. If you're a DEIOS waiter, like the rest of us, you will see how these tools are being used, implemented, and tested all over the place. So it's going to be really, really cool. We got that. We're going to meet Herbert, one of the co-founders of DGNFOG, and explore his little space, how he got involved, and spent a sleepless night the first time that they were even talking about DGNFOG. And then we're going to be talking timelines. Now, that's something that I think everyone is here for. Timelines. When are we going to get the alpha? Well, we're going to find out in today's show when we're going to get the alpha and what else we can expect to get this year. So let's jump straight into it. I've wasted so much time. I really appreciate your patience. I appreciate the patience of my guest who has been sitting quietly, possibly waving frantically at me. Let me ring him in. Till, how are you doing, Till?
Hi, everyone. I'm doing fine. I was so close to lip syncing what you were saying, but then you realized that you're muted. So, hello, everyone. We've met a lot earlier. You heard me a lot earlier than Guy. Great to be back on the show, and great to show all the new stuff that we have today.
Absolutely. So let's kick off with, actually, the lip syncing thing probably would have been better. Anyway, you've thrown me. Let's start off with a new interface video. Till, you're going to talk us through this as it runs. All right. So this is the new, this is the interface that we can expect moving forward, and it is this one. So what are we seeing here, Till?
So as you remember, we have several, let's say, construction sites that are working parallel to each other. So Jonas, you're going to meet him in one of the dev videos later down the road. Jonas is responsible for building the user interface and the UI. And he has made a good progress in developing the new user interface. So what you're seeing here is part of the library tools where you can browse all the maps that you have, where you can see all the stuff that you've created, where you will eventually share this stuff, and where you will also create your new map, which then eventually will lead into the editor. So I thought it was a nice pick to show you some of the UI elements that have been created so far, and then continue with the progress in terms of the editor and the drawing functionalities here.
Okay, so yeah, absolutely, and I think that we'll come back to this interface, not today, but in the course of the future as it
Yes, so
evolves.
this was just a little preview of where we're heading, how things will look like, how things will feel like. You've seen those little elements where you can mouse over the maps that you've created, and you will see all the slides, like, for example, for battle maps, all the layers that you've created, or for world maps, possibly the snippets, the viewports that you've created. So this is going to be part of the app interface, and this is what we call the user interface that is going to communicate through the Chromium embedded framework. And this is what Jonas is currently working on most of his time.
There we go. So now we're going to show you a video where there's a designer who's busy using the Landmass tool in DGNFOG and breaking it. You're going to have to help us here, Till.
Yeah, so first of all, when you look here, what we did was, because we're still in development for the app itself, and we needed to test the Landmass tools without waiting for the app. So what we did was we implemented the Landmass tools that are that you can see here into our DGNFOG render engine and started messing around with it. Now, you're looking at the DGNFOG user interface here, which is not going to be your user interface in DEIOS. This is just for us developers to adjust all the levers, to set all the settings, to play around with everything. And obviously, with the main goal to break it eventually, to find where are problems, what does work, what does not work. But I wanted to show you that because I think it's already a good preview of how the Landmass tool is going to work, although, again, not in that user interface. There's going to be a specific user interface for that. There you see that we still need to fine-tune the brush tools. We need to adjust that a little bit. And how my life as a tester looks like when I get new tools and I need to verify them, throw a look at them, and hopefully do not break it, but most of the time I am breaking it. So yeah, there you see, like you have the landmasses, you can draw them, you can subtract, you can add to them, you can create separate landmass layers and shift them over each other. So this is eventually going to be something that we are going to work with when it comes to let's call it baronies or kingdoms, so landmasses that might overlap each other. We might look at that in a way where you can subtract or add landmasses from each other. So this is where we are experimenting here. We've also, in the video, I've also added a little preview of a brush tool because I was just trying to play around with it and see how it affects the landmasses, how it's going to work. So this is fully experimental state. And the reason why you're seeing it in DGNFOG right now is because our rendering engines and our user interface in DEIOS isn't far enough for me to test it. But for DGNFOG, it's perfectly fine because we can use the renderer there to experiment with it. Now, in the next part of the video, you obviously see how I break the tool. So this is usually what I do when I try to see when the software gives up. I'm messing around with all the shapes. I'm trying to find impossible angles. I'm trying to find impossible things that eventually will lead to the tool to give up. And it is already rather stable. So as you see, I really did my best to break it at some point. There, now you have it. So there are still rendering issues when you have a circle in the center, like when you have an empty space in the center. So that is something that we will need to address. But overall, I was rather impressed because, as you can see now, I did my very best to make something terrible out of it and wait until the render engine gives up. But I had a hard job doing so. Now, I didn't want to disappoint you, so I kept on going and going and going until I will eventually finally break it. But here you can see how the tools are going to work when you are making adjustments to the land masses that you're working with.
Till, I'm going to jump in here quickly. We're sort of seeing that you could cut rivers, and when you cut the rivers, everything became separate. You got separate land masses.
Yes, that's not going to be the river tool, though. This is really cutting the shapes, the landmass shapes. The river tool is going to be a different tool because we do not want you to draw a river and accidentally cut your continents in half.
No one wants to do that.
No. So there you go. Bam! I finally broke it. Yeah, so the reason why it broke was because you shouldn't be able to set the slider that I just did. I think it was the jitter adjustment for the outlines. You shouldn't be able to set that down to 0 because then you create impossible angles and the render engine gives up. But yeah, there you go. So Landmass tool is in full development, is in full testing. And I think we're pretty close. It's just a matter of ironing out the last, let's call them render flukes that we just need to get rid of and implement that then into the application.
So, I mean, it looks really promising, and people in the chat are also saying very, very similar things. And there are some questions that have come up with that, but we will handle that towards the edge of the video, at the end of the video. So, Guacamole, Lensman, 1986, we will come to you. Now, Till, what are the consequences when you transpose something that's going to work in DEIOS and you put it into the DGNFOG engine and tool? What are the consequences for DGNFOG when you do something like this?
Apparently, we learn new things that we can use in DGNFOG as well. So again, just to make sure that we're on the same page, and especially you as the viewers are on the same page, we're not talking about separate tools. DGNFOG is, let's call it the company. Unfortunately, it is also the product, the battlemap editor right now. So there is always a bit of confusion here. The battlemap tool itself will be renamed once DEIOS is finished, because DEIOS technically is just the all-in-one creator suite where you have world maps, city maps, battle maps, space maps, and solar maps all in one. So right now when we say, how does it affect DGNFOG? It means how does it affect the battlemap editor right now? And one of the outcomes of that was when we brought the Landmass tool into the render engine of the battlemap editor, we realized that a lot of the things that we are doing in there could be very, very helpful for the tools that we are currently reworking for DGNFOG. Because if you remember, we talked about the new update that's going to affect the brushes. Now, as you see, the Landmass tool is a rather potent brush tool. So that is one of the things, that is kind of one of the synergies where we took it into DGNFOG, into the DGNFOG render engine, and learned that we could take that development and that progress and also bring it into DGNFOG early on. So there's going to be an update to DGNFOG rather soon. I would say around March as well. That is going to include new drawing features, but I think we have a video for that. So I don't want to jump the gun here.
Yeah, we do, and I like the fact that they sort of lead to different things. So let's have a look, and again, you can take us through what we are asked.
Sure. So that's exactly what I was talking about. Here we have the brush tool, which is technically a development stage from the Landmass tool itself. And the cool thing about that is when you look at it, you can draw shapes like a landmass, but in that case, as a rendered texture. And one of the benefits is that when you create those brush layers now, we can combine all those single brush strokes that you did before. We can combine them into one brush layer. And since this layer now shares the same architecture as the props, as you can see, you can paint above props. So you could place something like a hole in the ground and then start to adjust it to a way that it blends better into your picture. And if you're completely crazy, then you could also take the brush tools and start to draw on top of props to give them a different meaning, like I did here with those glowy little eyes that are sticking out the hole in there. So brushes now work like props that you can draw, that you can edit, and also through the experimentation phase there, we realized that we could use a transparent grid as a brush, which now allows you to paint grid where you need it and put props beneath or above the grid, which I think from an artistic point of view is something I remember that people have been requesting for a long time in DGNFOG, and now it kind of absolutely naturally came to us. The second thing is that when we use the same thing for our shapes tool, we can not only allow you to draw shapes in a completely intuitive way, but we're also able to convert those shapes into rooms. So what you're seeing here is early prototyping for us internally. We're not going to make you draw shapes and then convert them into rooms. But what we're going to do is we're going to rework our rooms tool to give you separate drawing modes. And that is something that we're also currently working on. Which allows you to freehand draw rooms rather than path clicking rooms on the way you're doing it right now in DGNFOG. So I think just by doing the Landmasses tool, we had so much inspiration and so much valuable output that we're very inspired by using that technique here.
I can't wait. I absolutely adore it. I really, really do. And brushes are very powerful, and I so like the idea of converting them to one layer rather than having 30 cross stripes, and it's great. It's really, really cool.
Yeah, it's also a big boost for performance because we don't have to render thousands of strokes, but we just render one layer, and you can combine those layers as you like. So you can draw them above walls, you can draw them above props. It's a rather powerful new update that we're looking forward to.
I think it's going to be great. And then Till, you said you think March would be round about where it might come out.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's still the big question is again the testing. Like, I think we could build it, so we're definitely going to bring it to the test service in March. If we're going to release it in March, we will see, depending on how the testing feedback is and depending on how much bugs need to be squashed first. But I would say yes, I would say March is absolutely realistic.
Okay. All right, so we've seen some demo videos and people are using words like awesome, amazing, wonderful, loving it. It's really, really cool. And I'm glad because that's exactly my response when I got these videos. Well, I got the videos without Till's commentary, so sometimes I was going, I have no idea what you're doing. So you have that advantage. Till, thank you for taking us through those things. Now we're going to go and profile someone from DGNFOG who was there at the very beginning, and he's a remarkable individual. So without any further delay, let us...
Hi there, I'm Herbert, father programmer and co-founder of DGNFOG. Currently I do a lot in the front end and a little bit in the back end. I was born in Austria, grew up in a small village called Bamhagen. Bamhagen is in the east of Austria. It's really flat there, with open spaces filled with grass and woods. This was a really cool time in my childhood, so I like it. Then 2004 I moved to Vienna. My first role-playing game was, wow, this is long ago. It was Hero Quest. I play a lot Hero Quest. Yeah, I like Hero Quest at this time. The only thing was I play always the Game Master, so the other wouldn't play it as Game Master, so I never play as players. It was never my intention to get a programmer. I started as telecommunication engineer, and a few years later all switched to microelectronics, and I need more and more programmer skills, so that was the beginning I got a programmer. I think it was 2005 I met Till the first time, and we start together working on web projects, cool web projects. 2008 Thomas joined our team, and it was really cool. There was another guy in the office, so we can talk each other over programming and this stuff. And this was really cool, a really cool time at this moment. And one time in the morning I came in the office, and Dylan Thomas sitting there and talking about editor, map editor, and I listened a bit, and it was so, yeah, okay. A few minutes later we're joking around what can we build in and what can we do with this editor, and this was so, yeah, okay. Then we take a real brainstorming, a real short brainstorming, and it was so, wow, okay. I go home, and in the evening I come from the office and starting to build up a little testing program, read a bit about Canvas, and yeah, this was a long night, and I liked this process. And in the morning I came in the office and bring the program with me, and I showed Till and Thomas, and they, wow, it's cool, we like this, and it's work. And we have so many cool ideas, what can we do with this? So this was the starting, I write down the Kickstarter demo, and from DGNFOG, yeah. And this was really cool. DEIOS is a project we can fill it with all the ideas and flat out the errors and the bottlenecks of DGNFOG, and we can build the whole tool from ground up. Make it a lot better, make a better render engine, make it a desktop application, fill it with some ideas like city maps or land maps. Yeah, it's really cool. We can make DGNFOG better, and DEIOS is this tool. We use Rust as a main language, so it's cool, so we can build up a desktop application and also a web application in one. The whole render engine runs better and use the whole OS RAM and is not restricted over the browser. So that's one of the real cool thing. Never stop learning. Never stop learning as programmer. It's learn all the new thing, read other code, learn new languages, try out some new stuff. Not all new stuff is good, but there are some gems in there, so you can use it and never stop learning.
There we are. There we are. There we are. That's Herbert. What a cool guy.
Yeah, absolutely. Herbert is from all the people working with me, I know Herbert for the longest. Like, he joined, I think we know each other now for almost 20 years. He was my first employee in my web design agency, and he stuck with us for the full time. And he was, as he said, he was the one who built the first prototype, the one that convinced me to try and do something on a professional basis here. So I'm very, very thankful for that first prototype. Thank you, Herbert.
We're looking into the past with Herbert. Now we want to look into the future. Yes. Into the future. We want to look into the future. So have we've got a roadmap. Can you talk us through it? What's happening?
Sure. Do you want to bring it up? There you go. Let me just quickly open it because I'm seeing it in reverse here, and that is rather hard to read. Okay, so what you're looking at right now is the roadmap that we have for DGNFOG, for Project DEIOS, and where we are right now. So as you see this double line in January, that is where we currently are. And then you have all those tasks. So the first segment is Kickstarter, which is completely done. We have done the concept for Kickstarter. We have done the prototyping. We have done the post-processing. We've also finished the back-kit processing and the hiring that was involved thanks to your support. So Kickstarter is a big check, done. Now we need to continue developing. So regarding the architecture, you see that we still have some yellow here, which means that there is still some troubleshooting involved. In particularly our Chromium embedded framework is still a little bit bug-ridden. I'm not the expert to talk details here. I'm pretty sure Andy will be able to go into detail there. But as far as I can tell, the Chromium embedded framework at the moment kind of makes it a jeopardy if the application stays open or automatically closes on itself after you've opened the application. So that is something that we still need to work out. We have asked Holden. He's an American developer who helped writing our Ceph architecture, and he is currently, I think I saw in Discord a few days ago, I saw some first results where he said, this is the point, we found the source, now we need to fix it. So I'm pretty confident that this is something that we will have ironed out within the next 2 sprints, which we're doing Scrum here, so we're doing 14-day sprints. So I would say at least in the next 2 sprints, we will have that one resolved. Databases is also yellow, mainly because we haven't really started working on the map object databases yet. Andy has done some testing for it. And as you see, we should have started in December. But we are now starting to get first experiments. So this is a little later than we hoped for, but we're still on track. I think I'm rather confident that we're going to have that finished for the alpha in time. So the rest of it is green. So our servers are being set up. We have implemented unit testing so that we can test our software more thoroughly and in an automated manner. We have our basic render primitives all in place, which technically just means that we can talk to the graphics card and we can render things the way they should be. We want to have more advanced render primitives, but as you see or might not see, it's rather grayed out. This is nothing that ends with the alpha, but that is something that continues afterwards. User management and authentication is set up and ready. It just needs a website, but we're going to talk about that later. Our remote procedure calls, we are mid-sprint here, and there has been some delay. I'm pretty sure that Jan can talk in detail about that, but all I got was that we are on track, but a little bit delayed, so this is a light yellow for me. The U framework, which is the user interface, you just saw that in the video. Jonas is making good progress here. Same goes with the editor base interface. We have all the designs ready. We have all the material components ready. So now this just needs to be implemented and built together. For the world tools, we have, as you've seen, we have made progress with the Landmass tools. They just need to be finished up and fine-tuned. Basic editing is also on track. Landmarks, well, this is prop placement, so this already is in DGNFOG. This just needs to be copied over. So this is also green for me. And brushes is something that we will, since we are addressing it with the DGNFOG brush revamp, we're going to address that in the same space. So brushes are also on track, which then leaves us to compiling everything into Alpha 1 and releasing Alpha 1. And as far as we can tell right now, this is late March, or if something goes horribly wrong, early April. So I think March, April is a good estimate for our Alpha 1, but we're not going to leave you with that alone. There are going to be intermediate steps that are coming up soon, and I will talk about that later.
So end of March, April, I'm just going to go and put that onto the wall quickly to make sure that we are ready for that. I think it's very exciting. And yes, all right, so when that does come out, and there are lots of questions coming through, and I'm very aware of them, guys, so don't worry, we will get to them. When that alpha comes out, what can we expect to see in that alpha?
So, as you've seen in the roadmap, the first alpha is for us the place where we want to make sure that our fundaments, our foundation is built. So it is mainly about drawing landmasses and making sure that the landmass tool works and is solid, and that you can scale in, scale out, create your world map based on landmasses. Now that would be terribly boring. If all you could do in the first alpha would be just drawing landmasses, I think we would disappoint users a lot. They would be like, oh, the alpha is out. Oh, I can draw landmasses now. That's exciting. So we decided that we want to add brushes and we want to add prop placement in there as well, which means that we're not talking biomes yet. But you will be able to decorate that. And I've spoken to Kiora last week. We're going to have 125 base assets, fantasy assets in the first alpha that you will be able to create and draw and decorate your world maps with.
I think that's pretty cool. And I like the fact, and I think that there was some questions earlier on, what would we get access to? So it's going to be the base, sort of the fantasy stuff.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. Now, there was something that you were mentioning about the account manager. It basically just needs a website. You were talking about that. So when is that going to come out, and what's that going to allow us to do?
Okay. Late February, early March, we are going to notify all Kickstarter backers and ask them to sign up to the Project DEIOS account management page. So you will get an email where you will be invited to create an account, to set up your credentials, and to get access to the, let's call it, software distribution page. So once we are done with that, we are going to invite all backers in the first draft, and then we're also going to release our late pledge or pre-order store, I think we're calling it right now, where people then, if they missed the Kickstarter campaign, can buy access to the alphas as well. And all that this thing does is it allows you to link your BackerKit accounts or Kickstarter accounts to your, that's not wrong, you're not linking accounts. What you do is you get an invitation and you create an account. And with that account set up, you will then have the platform where you can download the application. So once you're set up, you will have a little calendar sheet there and a little notification system. And once we push the compiled application to you, you will be able to download the application from there. And to give all the users time to create their accounts, to set up, to be ready, we're going to do that early March.
That's really cool. Okay. Yeah, well, I'll be there, and several people have started a countdown for that, so that's exciting. Quickly, the road ahead beyond the alpha and that sort of thing. We've got a roadmap 2020. Let's talk about that very quickly.
So, I mean, as you know, if you're familiar with software development, then the further you look down the road, the vaguer it gets. So this is our estimate to what we want to achieve and how much time we think we will need for that. So once Alpha 1 is out, we want to look at advanced metrics and zooming. We want to look at terrain elevation, text and symbols. Then we want to start with the basic biomes, the roads and the rivers, and the basic exporting. With that done, I think we have a rather solid world building tool when it comes to drawing land masses and worlds, continents, something like that. So with that set up, we will then finish our work package world map building and dive into city editor. Now, we will start with the basic district, city walls, to set that up. Also, we want to start working on the solar maps with orbits and trajectories, and then the galaxies. So this is what we want to bring into Alpha 2. As you see, we have allocated about 6-month development time for that. Now, I can't really say if that is a good estimate or a bad estimate. I would say the further down the road we get, the better the estimation will be. Right now, this is what our team agreed to and what we think we can achieve. And we're not, at least as far as I know, we're not going to just have this one alpha, download the software, live with it, and then the second alpha, download the software, live with it. But we're going to have at least 1 or 2 intermediate release cycles where you can get the newest version of the alpha. Right, after Alpha 2, then it gets absolutely unpredictable from as of today, but the informational layers, the world anvil integration, the randomization, the advanced rivers and roads, where we talk about gates and bridge tools, and the advanced brushes, all of that is then going to be addressed in post-Alpha 2 development. So I think
that's it. That's as far as we can go in terms of determining the future. It's an exciting one. Really is an exciting one. Till, do you think sometimes developers are a little bit optimistic in terms of when you ask them when can we release an Alpha 2 or an Alpha 3?
I'm not sure if it's optimism or just the way programming works, where you have your plan, you know what you want to do, you possibly know the libraries you want to use, you know the classes you want to write, so you have a rather specific understanding of what you're approaching, and then something goes wrong. Like there's one class that's not responding, there's one library that's not well documented, and you're suddenly looking at a problem that you haven't been anticipating before, and now you need to find a way to work around that. It's basically what happened to our Chromium Embedded Framework issue, where we really spent more than 3 weeks digging through all the documentation in there to understand why it is closing on us, and then asked Holden to help us. And he still is looking for the cause. Now he at least could narrow down the area of problem. But those are things that you can't just estimate for. You can create a buffer. You can say, okay, I think it will take us 4 months to do that, so let's say it takes 6 months. The problem with that is that that's what every programmer does. So what every head of office does is he takes those 6 months and says, well, yeah, you're adding a buffer to that, so let's reduce that by 2 months. And then it's like you have an understanding of where you're going. And I truly believe now that we have, once the alpha is out, and the core system is set up, I think the traction and the speed will increase, because now we just need to deploy new drawing mechanics into an existing framework. Right now, at the moment, it's very hard to estimate those things, because we're still working on so many different construction sites. I think as time progresses, our estimations will get a lot better than they are right now.
That's absolutely understandable, and people are commenting saying you can never plan for the unplanned. So there we are. Now, whilst I'm going to go and look for questions to throw at you, Till, there is a project that is going to be making use of a whole bunch of things. They're very integral to the whole project. I'm going to bring up their banner. If you want to just refresh everybody's minds, there's a very important thing going on as well. DENOA and their Kickstarter. Can you talk about that for a bit?
Yes. You might know already that DENOA is a project by Hammerdog Games, and they have been a My World backer to Project DEIOS. So they supported our Kickstarter campaign, and in return, we will create the world map and cities and regions, as well as battle maps for their games. They also are going to get an asset, like a dedicated setting for the world of DENOA, that they said that they're going to make available for the DEIOS users. Now, I think, if not already, they are going to enter their 72 hours countdown on their Kickstarter campaign. So this is my shout out to all of you. If you haven't checked out the campaign, they did a lot of work on their campaign page. They updated it. They put all the things online that have been unlocked. Check out the campaign. And they are already funded. So I think now it's mainly a question of pushing through all those stretch goals that they are announcing there. So check out DENOA, go there, pledge if you haven't yet. And let's hope that we will soon have a world of DENOA in Project DEIOS.
Brilliant. Couldn't have said it better myself. I agree. I think it's a very interesting thing that they do. I mean, they're doing so many things within that. Anyway, it's really cool. All right, Till, we've got some questions and a little bit of time in which to answer them. So in no particular order or favor for Twitch or for YouTube, there was a question that was asked very early on by Lensman 1986, and that question was, will the updates, that's the written summaries of these videos, will they have timestamps to the relevant video? Is that something that was asked for at the time?
I think we can manage. Yes, so we can do that.
All right, so we'll drop in some timestamps for you there. Guacamole immediately asked another question. Any chance for a modern biome that is part of the Project DEIOS offerings, but that's not going to come out in alpha.
No, so in alpha, it's not biomes, as you have seen possibly in the time in the roadmap. Biomes are something that we're going to tackle right after the alpha 1 has been released. So this is our big late spring, early summer task that we're addressing. Now, when it comes to modern, I would invite you to post ideas about that in Discord. But I think modern has not been one of the initial settings that have been requested by the Kickstarter survey that we did, which doesn't mean that it's not coming. It just doesn't mean that it's not coming within the development time of DEIOS. But afterwards, we will look at all the things that didn't make it into the first development and address them later. So please share your ideas. What would you like to see in a modern biome? And we will happily take that and put it into our art log for later.
I suppose there's things like concrete car parks and things like that. Anyway,
Possibly.
Good question. On YouTube, Bomber of Tannengrund asks the question, will there be contour lines for marking out higher and lower regions?
So this is what we have called terrain elevation. To be honest, there are still two concepts, and we haven't really decided on which way to go. I'm not going to talk about that right now because I want to give the team and us more experience in the Landmass tool before we address those. But we have ideas on how to tackle that, and we will come back to that. I would say the answer would be we definitely want something like that in there. We haven't really found the right way to do it right now.
All right, nothing wrong with that answer. The Lensman 1986 says, Till is mentioning, this is while we were looking at you breaking the Landmasses videos, you mentioning the app. Is he talking about the desktop app, or will there be a feature, or will these features be on this be the same? Sorry, on both the desktop app and the web interface. Will they be the same?
Yes, mostly. So one of the reasons why we built DEIOS the way it is right now is that we can rather easily translate everything from the desktop application into a web server application. Now, we decided to go desktop application first because it gives us a lot more space for developing and testing. But eventually we're going to migrate everything that we did. So before DEIOS launches, we're going to migrate all of that stuff into the online editor as well. There is a slight but, which is just that we, depending on how the feedback is and how users like the application or not, might be that we're pushing that a little bit post-launch because the application is really good and people are taking that for the preferred way to work with it. So we want to finish the product, and if it means that the product finished is first desktop, and then we're going to roll out a web version later, then this might be a decision that we're going to make. But as of now, as of today, I would say it's a rollout on both systems, desktop, which means Mac, Windows, and Linux, and online, which is then browser-based.
All right, and I think that also answers Darian 1012's question, so I'm going to skip on from that one. Primordian has a question. If you draw world or region maps, will there be a tool to measure distance?
Yes.
Fractal Terrains from Campaign Cartographer had this, and I was very grateful for it. So there was your
Yes.
answer. The
answer was yes. Yes, definitely. So we have this dynamic scaling system that adjusts the scale that your viewport currently shows to adjust that based on your zoom level. But because you will need that to understand distances, there will be a distance measurement tool.
Lovely. Okay. There's a suggestion here, and it kind of sounds like Google Maps to me. I'm not sure. But hey, if that's what we end up with, I'm not complaining. Bomber of Tannengrund asks, city maps are often very boringly flat. Well, yes, that's what Google Maps started off with. Is there a possibility of simulating lower and higher parts of cities?
Oh, again, you mean like terrain elevation, where you say, okay, the city is built on a hill that then slides down into a lower part. You might have a mining shaft where slums are located, something like that. Yes.
There we go. Yes. Yes, it can be done. Next question is the Roach asks, will it be possible to export PRTE gridded maps? I'm not sure what that PRTE gridded maps. For example, for Fantasy Grounds, setting up grids on painted grids can be a real pain. Wow. Okay. So let me translate. I'm struggling with English. So you can export from Dungeon Fog without the grid. We'll be able to export without the grid from DEIOS as well.
Yes. Again, if you want to join a discussion about that, explain us in detail what you're talking about, please come to our Discord, and we will happily dive into that. Because honestly, I don't know what PRTE grids are, but if that is something that we should be aware of, please join us in Discord and make us aware of.
I suspect it's pre-gridded. But yes. All right. So there we go. CJS Chow says, note's been asked before, but just to clarify, with regards to the desktop versus the web application, will there be a one-time buy, all-time use, or will it remain subscribing based?
No, there will be. So as we did with the Kickstarter campaign, where all the Platinum backers at the end will be able to decide if they want to use their Platinum pledge as a one-time license key, so we're calling that a perpetual license, or if they want to continue that as a subscription, you will have the option to buy a perpetual license for DEIOS. The big difference is that the subscription comes with all the benefits of the community collaboration, the ongoing asset packs, and all the things that are kind of web-based around subscriptions, where subscription makes sense. Whereas if you buy the perpetual license, you will get access to the assets through the marketplace, so you will have to buy them separately. That kind of is the gist of what subscription versus perpetual license is going to be. As a matter of fact, we are going to introduce very soon, I think mid-February, a first step into that direction for Dungeon Fog as well, because we are going to release an on-demand system where you can buy, instead of doing a subscription, you can buy access to Dungeon Fog Premium for a month, for 3 months, or for 6 months on demand.
That's cool. That's really cool. Okay, lots of questions. Let's humour some people. Lensman1986 says, will there be a time limit for alpha access? In other words, will they get a point where you turn off the ability to download the alpha version?
Well, when we launch. But until then, you have alpha access. It's not something that you might experience from computer games where we say, oh, it's the alpha weeks. You now have 14 days to test the alpha. Excuse me. No, it's just you need to set up the account. Otherwise, you will not be able to download the application. But if you set up the account now, or if you set up the account in 6 months, it's up to you. That's fine.
All right, that's good to hear. Some friends of ours say, how did you guys get to be so awesome? World Anvil, we love you too. We really, really, really do. Then Pack Kill asks a very serious question. How are Kaora and Pinky coping with the asset production so far. For those of you who don't know, Kaora's pet is a pink octopus named Pinky. Kaora is doing the artwork for.
If you want to know more about that, Kaora told me that he's starting to live stream his art process. So if you want to, we're going to restream that here as well. It needs to be set up, and there's still some things that we need to figure out first, more from a technical nature. But follow Kaora on Twitch, because I think he already started, and every week he's going to stream his progress on DEIOS artworks. So if you want to see how he's coping, have a look. Go to his Twitch stream. I think it's twitch.tv/Kaora. If someone in the chat can link it, that would be perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's definitely. I mean, it's also very relaxing to watch how he does it, and then you get so envious because he makes it look so easy. Arkenforge says, for updates to the desktop app, will there be a patching tool, or will it just be a giant download that you need to update the entire thing with?
So again, this is something that I can only answer from the meetings we had on that. But as far as I know, it's going to be a patching tool. So you will not be required to always download the latest application and run it. It might be that we're not starting with that in Alpha 1, but we will bring it later down the road. So it might be that Alpha 1 is still like a one-time application that you download and throw away. But I don't think so. I think we're going to, the sooner we can start with the patch tool, the better. Yeah, I think that's it.
Makes sense. Makes absolute sense. Bomber of Tannengrund once again asks another question. Will it be possible to integrate rule sets for rolling via macro later on? I think that's referring maybe to the...
So if you're talking about rule sets for rolling, that sounds a lot like DICE, which is a VTT issue. And again, it's a map drawing tool, so we're not going to address a lot of VTT stuff in there, apart from the fact that we want to have a viewer that you can present to your players so they can see a fog of war system of the world maps or the city maps that they have already discovered or revealed. But everything that is more game mechanic related is going to come a lot later, because we want to focus on the drawing tools first.
Makes absolute sense. Absolute sense. So if you missed the beginning of this show, or at least you missed the audio from the beginning of the show like everybody else did, remember you will be able to get a summary of this entire thing where we try to pick out what we think is the most relevant information and put it into text format on the Project DEIOS Kickstarter page under updates. You will be able to find that. So that brings us to the end of today's show. We've gone a little bit over time, but I thought that was okay considering we started a little bit shakily, but we won't talk about that. Till, thank you so much for being part of today's show, as usual, giving us all the information. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, for asking your questions and for participating, of course. We will be back next month in February, towards the end of February, where hopefully my chest cold will have cleared up. Audio will be perfectly clear and always present, definitely. And we will be 1 month closer to that all-important alpha release. So until then, if you've got questions, Till, they can jump onto Discord and find all of the team members there, as well as checking out the Project DEIOS Kickstarter. Until next month, however, I wish you and yours the very, very, very successful mapping it out.